World Network. And today's topic is the cauldron. This is sort of a new metaphor that I've come up with that I'm excited to share with you. But before we get started, before we dig into that, let's just take a minute or two to get present, and let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine brilliant, bright light coursing into your body and your being and lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying and energizing. And as you exhale, exhale any stress, any tension, any fatigue, negativity. And now let's take another deep breath in and hold it, and imagine clean, crisp oxygen nourishing all your cells, all your blood, moving through your bloodstream, nourishing all your organs. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining toxins, fatigue, negativity, toxicity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tingling and the tickling and that wonderful, wonderful sensation. And welcome, welcome. It's great to be here with you. And good morning, Rosalind. Today's topic is the cauldron. So I was having this wonderful conversation yesterday, and we were talking about expectations and living life from this ideal of what life should be, which is really, really fascinating. Like family should be the place where we're seen and heard and embraced and loved unconditionally. And that's how family should be. So if my life doesn't conform to that, then there's obviously something wrong with my life, or my life is somehow less than. And what happens as a consequence is that I then can or tend to diminish the amazing things in my own family or my own life that isn't living up to this manufactured ideal, right? That this vision of the perfect family, or the perfect experience, that what happens is, good morning, Angel. Wonderful to have you here. We're talking about the cauldron today, but first I'm starting out by talking about how we often compare our lives against an imagined ideal. Oh, from Norway. Great to have you here from Norway. How neat. So when we compare ourselves against these false ideals, we can't help but be but come up short, right? And so in looking at life, rather than trying to make it this, good morning, Dido, great to have you here as always. Rather than trying to make life conform to this fantasy of how life should be, we get to realize that our lives are like a cauldron, that we are, as our identity, kind of like this wonderful cauldron that has all these ingredients in it. It's like it's not like we need to be happy all the time, for instance, but that life is made of all the range of experience and emotion, that life is filled with joy and sorrow and expectation and disappointment and anger and jubilation, and the whole gamut. And we all have these different experiences in different measure. Good morning, Robin. Great to have you here. And so with all of these experiences and all of these emotions combined in their unique proportions in our own individual cauldron, that makes our lives unique. And if you're a person who cooks, you know that the ingredients that go into a recipe are not necessarily ingredients that can be enjoyed alone. So, for instance, particularly with the seasonings, you wouldn't necessarily be eating nutmeg by itself, or garlic powder, or salt just by itself, or etc. You get the idea. And and if we think about our lives as this cauldron, making this wonderful individual special soup, then we can appreciate the different experiences in our lives that are the seasoning. And as we're cooking, different ingredients rise to prominence, as it's boiling. Maybe, maybe we're more aware of the onions that are in there than we are of the beans, for instance, or just you're getting the idea. And so Angel says, have more fun in playground, just be you, and see who came to play and who comes to play and who comes to lift you up when you are down. The love in our food tastes the best. Good morning, Tammy. um, Maggie's pretty feisty this morning. She took one of the keys off my keyboard of my laptop yesterday. And obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm broadcasting this on my laptop. So, and I do all my work on my laptop. And so Maggie likes to walk on the keyboard, but yesterday she took it a step further and she actually stole one of the keys. And I had a bear of a time getting it affixed to the keyboard, and she promptly pulled it up again this morning. So she's not liking that I'm keeping her from the keyboard, and is using me as her chew toy. So anyway, we're talking about the cauldron, and I kind of love the idea of the cauldron because it inspires to me the idea of magic, good magic, and and putting together all these really wild ingredients that then combine to make ourselves, or to give us the the life that we have. So we're the container, we are the cauldron, and we're containing the unique blend of ingredients that makes us us. And what what I love about this is that it gives us the perspective to understand that we're all of these things. That I'm not, a person I was talking to was talking about identifying with their emotions. So, for instance, to say, I am depressed, like that's who I am, I'm depressed, or I am angry, or I am happy, or I am bored, or any number of those different expressions, and taking that on as if it's an identity. And Maggie doesn't think that's such a great idea. Are you finished? Are you finished? Not yet. Okay. So what we get to do is to recognize that all of those aspects of our lives and of our expressions are simply a part of this bigger stew, and that the stew is the composite of all of us. That there's this wonderful. Really? Are you done now? Okay, so maybe she's done now. I'm not really sure. So she, she's a character today. So anyway, Angel says, we stand on cliff, our lives push us over the edge. Magic holds us when we either fall or fly. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so thank you for that, Angel. When we look at um, this this alchemy of our experiences, our beliefs, our thoughts, our emotions, our physicality, when we look at it all together, it makes this wonderful, wonderful synthesis. And I love the word alchemy, because it's really talking to the whole being more than the sum of the parts. So that's what our lives are, and that's who we are. And this conversation arose partly. Well, I had an opportunity to use this metaphor multiple times yesterday, which was really fun. And one instance was when I was talking to a person who was concerned in doing some change work about losing themselves, about not knowing who they were going to be on the other side of the change work. And this is something that I've had multiple clients show up to sessions and tell me that they're afraid to deal with this issue, because this issue is who they are, and believing that they were their behaviors or their attitudes. And it's so remarkable and inspiring to me to notice that every time somebody shows up with that fear, on the other side, it's like nothing happened. And I don't mean that they haven't transformed, they have, but it wasn't like cutting off an arm or something like that. It was more like taking off a shroud. And oftentimes the things that we believe ourselves to be, or the identities that we hold, oftentimes those identities are really like shrouds that we put over, that we cover our light with, that we enrobe ourselves with, and then we become what we believe, that we are that robe, that we are that vestment, that piece of clothing, or that piece of adornment that that we wear. And in fact, those things are often the things that keep us from the broader experience of actually being the cauldron. And the cauldron can contain pretty much anything, because we are the container. We are not the stuff that's in the cauldron. We are the container, and the stuff that's in the cauldron is an expression, or sums up to be our expression, perhaps, or our wisdom. But the thing is that even when we get to the point that perhaps the cauldron is empty, or it has so much in it that it has everything in it, then we are the container. We are the whole of all of it. And I know I've spoken about this before, but this sounds like a good time to remind you about it, or to speak it again. And that is this notion of letting go. So when we talk about evolution, it's about letting go. And I even talked about like removing this shroud from ourselves so that we can beam our light. I think that the letting go idea is largely an Eastern idea. And as Westerners, we're very oriented toward accumulation. Not letting go. We're fundamentally oriented toward acquisition, right? So the cauldron really works well for that idea, I think, because Rosalind says letting go is freedom. Well, okay, I can understand that letting go is freedom and releasing resistance. And I'm just offering another perspective for the Western mind. And, whatever works, it's really equivalent. Letting go, or instead being acquisitional, fundamentally, if we expand to include. So rather than letting go of the anger, expand to include the anger, which in its way allows us to incorporate it, or to kind of as we expand to include all the feelings, we get more and more expansive. And as we get more and more expansive, ultimately, we incorporate all things, all experience. And that's really kind of what the cauldron is. And so letting go and expanding to include are very much the same thing from different directions. At least that's how I experience it. So when I expand to include something, I am no longer resisting it, and I'm embracing it in some way, and I am incorporating it into my greater being as an aspect, as one of our many faces, as an ingredient in the cauldron. So Liliane, welcome, Liliane. It's so good to see you. Yes, you haven't met Maggie before. Maggie is a new addition, sometimes very vocal. She had quite a lot to say earlier this session this morning. But yeah, this idea of the cauldron and life as this sumptuous feast. I kind of love that idea, to realize that we have so much richness that is available to us. And sometimes the cauldron is bubbling over, and sometimes it's barely a simmer. And I just really enjoy the metaphor. And so one person that I was having the conversation with, and this is where it came from actually, was talking about, yeah, but I want the cauldron to be this golden vessel instead of the cauldron. And I thought that was such a really great way to have this conversation, because we want that, like the golden vessel is this imagined ideal, and the cauldron is this really sturdy, solid. I picture it as, like this rounded big pot, and it's black, and it's heavy, and it's like metal, like cast iron maybe, and it actually feels better to me when I think of this cauldron, rather than the golden chalice or whatever, because that's an ideal, that's idealized. The cauldron can contain all of life. At least this is the way I'm imagining it. So I'm just sharing that with you to see if it creates a different visceral sense for you. Like I don't have to worry about the cauldron boiling over, because if it does, it can handle it. And again, there's I see us being able to stir that cauldron and to spoon out ingredients that we want to taste in that moment. Liliane says, yes, I'm working with letting go. It's a challenge. So exactly, Liliane, for me, letting go was really challenging. But instead of having to, hold on with grip and a clenched fist holding on. Expanding to include has a gentleness about it, so that I can expand to include my disappointment, my rage, my sadness, my joy, my love. I can expand to include that. And as I expand to include that, what I know and what I recognize and what I experience is that if I can expand to include that, that I am not that. I am not my anger. I am not my sadness. I am not depression. I am not anger. I am not hatred. I am not resentment. I'm not even love. I'm all of it. I'm being. I'm life. I'm the expanse of all of it. And maybe some might say that the cauldron is love. That's possible too. But I found the mechanics of letting go eluded me, whereas expanding to include, I could imagine myself embracing that feeling, that what that brings. Expanding to include brings acceptance, brings an allowing. It brings a lack of resistance, right? And so for me, the dynamic of that was just more accessible, and is more accessible, because now I can recognize that all of these things are part of me, but none of them are me. You know, I may express this or that at a different time, but that's not who I am. I am not my behaviors. I am not my thoughts. I am not my beliefs. I hold them, and I can hold them with clenched fist, or I can hold them with open hand. And that's why when I talk about beliefs, I talk about, well, my working hypotheses, because I am moving into being able to hold these beliefs and these ideas as tools and as hypotheses, tools for living. Lillian says, I work with it every day. I feel the worst to manage letting go is that I cannot fix others' life with my family. And it's hard to just let that go when I always have been their support in all ways. Yeah, so that's a biggie. It's a biggie to be wanting to fix people, and to make decisions for other people's lives. We make judgments about how other people live and how they should be able to live better, and we want to protect them from pain and suffering, and we want to shield them or help them. And the thing is that all of our ideas about their lives are coming from our own perspective and our own judgment. And that we get to look at that. We get to look at that. And um, there's a way, I think, of being with others, allowing them, like just really expanding to include them and their perspectives and their way of being. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't offer support, but if that support isn't asked for, or that support is rejected, then it's not a personal thing. Like, who are we to decide how other people should be living? Really? I mean, what 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 makes me think that I know how you should be living better than you do? Doesn't stop me from having my opinions, but really, who am I to tell you how to live? You know, we can share ideas collectively, we can support each other in making shifts and changes, but do I know better? I may think I do. But what's at the root of that is me judging you as less than me, right? And when we take a stand, when we assert our opinions and our perspectives, we also get to know that our opinions and our perspectives really are not truth. They're our own working hypotheses, really. And Lillian says, and it's hard not to feel bad when I try to use my own time on myself. Well, Lillian, that's the best place to be using your time, probably, is taking care of yourself. And I don't mean to the, I think that as I take care of myself, part of taking care of myself is recognizing that it feels good to support others in a variety of ways. And that doesn't mean imposing my will on others, but offering support when it's welcomed. Rosalind says, just wanted to recap the expanding to include. Past, present, future. Present is quickly becoming the past. So expanding to include the past moving forward has less resistance to the present moment. I got to read this again. I love where you're going with this, Rosalind. This is awesome. Past, present, future. Present is quickly becoming the past. Moment by moment by moment, it is. Exactly. So expanding to include the past moving forward has less resistance to the present moment. So are you saying, Rosalind, that by expanding to include the past, we don't have to worry about resisting the present moment? Because frankly, I think that resistance doesn't exist in the present. When we're truly present, I don't think that resistance exists. I think that the resistance that we experience is pulling the past forward or projecting into the future. And so we're not actually being present. I think that when we do have the ability to truly be present, that we're not in resistance. You know, so if I'm resisting, it's because I'm manufacturing the past or the future in my head. Because once the past is past, all that we know of it is what we make up about it. If that, I'm curious to hear your response to that, Rosalind, because yeah, the resistance is not being really truly present, I think. That's my hypothesis again. So Lillian says it's like they mean, oh, okay. So Lillian is saying that when you take care of yourself, it's like you don't care for them because you're taking care of you. But in fact, you do care for them. Well, if they think that maybe there's a way to better have communication, Lillian, where the way that you express your caring, maybe there's ways to express your caring for them more overtly and take care of yourself. I'm not really sure about the details of your circumstance, but I'm imagining that there are ways that you can share your caring, that they'll understand and still have space for you to take care of you. And Rosalind says, I resonate with the words to move through resistance by accept, align, allow. Yes, because what is resistance? It's lack of allowing, right? It's lack of alignment, it's lack of acceptance. Exactly, Rosalind, you nailed it. And let's see, Rosalind says accept. Lillian says, yes, they see me as selfish. Well, okay, so here's the thing about taking care of ourselves. Oftentimes that we have a resistance to taking care of ourselves and feel that we're being selfish when we do that. And so if we're feeling that we're being selfish by taking care of ourselves, other people perceive us that way because we're broadcasting that. We're experiencing ourselves as selfish. And as a result, other people perceive us that way too, because we're broadcasting it. But if we're okay with taking care of ourselves, then it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't show up as selfish necessarily. And even, if someone is making outrageous requests of you, then and you decide not to be with those requests, that's in your right. If they think you're selfish, that's on them. That's okay. That's okay. If it matters more to you that they don't think you're selfish than it does to do what you need to do for yourself, then you get to choose that too. Rosalind says, accept the past, align with the present moment, allow room for future growth. I love it, Rosalind. That's beautiful. Accept the past, align with the present moment, allow room for future growth. Beautiful. Accept, align, and allow. That's beautiful. Really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think along with, I want to talk about that accepting the past. What is the past? The past is our perspective on situations that happened. Okay, it's not truth in a capital T way, because our memories of the past change over time. And the truth of it is that the past is our memory or our interpretation. So when we talk about accepting the past, what we get to do is to look at the stories that we have about the past and to find a way to reconcile those stories or to reframe them in ways that are going to be more empowering for us and align with the present moment. The way that I interpret what you're saying, Rosalind, is be present. And that's the biggest challenge of all, is being present, and then allow room for future growth. Allowing room for future growth is also about the stories that we create for the future, right? Like what kind of possibility are we going to entertain, and what kinds of stories are we going to tell ourselves about who we are now to expand into the possibilities of the future. So Lillian says, yes, I send them all love and that helps me. Love is the gift that keeps giving, right? Love is the gift that when we give it away, the more we give it away, the more we receive. So yes, I'm sure that helps, Lillian. That's great. And Rosalind says, in an airplane, in a crisis, you put the oxygen mask on yourself so that you can help others. Exactly. If we don't sustain ourselves, there's nothing there to give to others at all. So, and Lillian says, thank you, Rosalind. And Rosalind said, Robin says, live each day as if it were your last, so that you have no regrets for your past. Oh, I love that. Live each day as if it were your last, so you have no regrets for your past. And it looks like that is a quote from Robin. Congratulations. That's a great quote. And there's a lot to be said about living each day as if it were your last, because then perhaps we can be more driven by our heart, by our deepest intentions. And Rosalind says, detach from past thought patterns or behaviors. So the detach takes us full circle back to letting go, right? Past thought patterns or behaviors. And there's an art to that in and of itself, I believe, is recognizing our patterns and moving through that. And belief work is certainly one way to do that. And the core connection work that I do, I believe works on the level of frequency of patterns. So, you know, we have different levels with which different levels of awareness. So we can be aware of a belief, we can identify a belief and try and recreate a new belief. But I believe that my working hypothesis is that there are underlying, like that we're frequencies, that that certain thoughts and certain patterns have certain frequencies, and that when we're shifting those beliefs on a rational level, there may still be that frequency that from which that belief was derived that is operational, and that is why so many times we see ourselves coming back to the same behaviors, the same patterns over and over and over again, even after we've done a lot of work. When we can shift on a fundamental level of frequency, then I believe that the shift is actually long-lasting, if not permanent. So Rosalind says it's a work in progress on a daily basis. I agree with you 1,000%. So daily we get to become more and more aware, and hopefully more and more allowing, and less resisting, perhaps, and more and more conscious and mindful and present. Yeah, what a great conversation today, guys. Thank you so much. The cauldron, right? We are in the cauldron. We are the cauldron, and collectively we're in a cauldron too. You know, it works as a metaphor for me. I don't know if it does for you or not, but anyway, it's kind of a fun thought. I do like to cook, so that's part of it, and I like making all kinds of concoctions and fermentation stuff, and you know, it's all alchemy. So bottom line, the cauldron equals alchemy for me, and maybe it's a useful metaphor for you. So I think that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is Maggie. And this is the Core Connection. We come here each day. We go live each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming and community at Enlightened World Network. And until next time, just stir that cauldron and notice the ingredients that are taking your attention in this particular moment. Lots and lots and lots of love to all of you, and gratitude for sharing this time.